Welcome everyone to the final Chief Delegate call for Term 4. So happy to be here with my fellow Chiefs. This is our last call, like I mentioned, and we've got some decisions to make. We're going to potentially sign some MSIGs this call to get everything ready for the election coming up this Saturday, 13 UTC. Please participate, and we'll continue this amazing experiment that we're also lucky to be on. So with that, I'm going to kick it off for the first topic. This is a time-sensitive topic. Hopefully we can come to a decision real quickly and let the people concerned know. So this is in regards to Luca's bot. And so this is the upvote bot. And he's done some great work. If you've been tuning into our calls, on our last call, we decided as chiefs that because the UI says one thing, Zoom, and the bot is on Telegram, we feel that the UI should be updated more before we totally move to the bot. I think we're all in consensus that we do want to move to the bot eventually, and perhaps as soon as even the election after this one. We have, Eden on EOS is kind of based on Telegram. We have our Telegram handles in each Eden profile, so it totally makes sense. Really, what I personally thought, and Luca agreed, and I think Javier was on the call too, that when you're on the UI and the on the main UI, and the groups are divided, and it says sign in with Zoom, instead of sign in with Zoom, it should have the unique Telegram group that the bot. So the bot also randomizes the same randomization into Telegram groups. It should be on the UI, go to your Telegram group, and then go from there. So, but that's in the future. For now, what the idea that came up during our call is that it could solve the following problem. And I've noticed this almost every single time in the election, that people get randomized into groups and they use that public Telegram channel of Eden to try to coordinate with the groups. And it's always like a big wall of text, and sometimes people miss it. And so we have a coordination problem every single election. So the idea is maybe we just use the bot to organize people into Telegram groups in the beginning, and we still use Zoom. So we're still going to use a Zoom link in there, but at least in the beginning, we can maybe gain some coordination efficiencies. And we can also start like baby steps with the bot if we're all in consensus that eventually we want to move there. So for Luca's concern, what if we all agree with that? The changes he would make is that he would not do video, so he would take the video out, and he'd put a little message in there, get the Zoom link from, because on the Eden UI, it's like the first one to sign in with Zoom gets that link. So it'd be a message like, get the Zoom link from the person who got signed in first, and paste, and like if you have the Zoom link, paste it in this group. So that's the idea. What do we think?
Well, first of all, I'm very supportive of any projects by other fellow Eden members, and I'm 100% supportive of Luca's initiative. I think it's amazing what they pulled off. It worked really well in our last mock election. Basically, there's a little onboarding that needs to get done to use the bot. You have to enter start or start you go to the Telegram user, you hit start, and then it'll start sending you information, who's in your group. It'll create a group with the people you're in, and that's extremely helpful. Telegram has this video call option, and you can actually start a video call and record it on Telegram without the restriction of Zoom, where there's a 45-minute limit, which is something that we've run into before, right? That the the Zoom room limit. However, the UI, as Jesse says, still points people to the Zoom rooms. So what we're thinking is allowing people to create these breakout rooms automatically on Telegram, coordinate with their group, but still use Zoom for this election, and then kind of start introducing the idea of the bot. And I think that's a good middle ground. The greatest challenge, I guess, is coordinating with those in your group so that they all get the same Zoom link. But if we have those groups made automatically, then we could just share the Zoom link over Telegram. And for now, kind of use that hybrid approach where Telegram groups and Zoom conferencing. The only complication here might be getting signed up to the bot. It's actually very simple, and Luca can provide more support to those users to make sure they understand how to get the bot up and running. But it worked great on our last mock election, and I think it's a good improvement for the election in general. We just don't want to cause any confusion or have people end up in different locations, and make sure that it's as easy as possible to participate in the election.
Yeah, and of course, if they don't want to use the bot, they don't have to. They can just do it as we've done it the last 3 elections or the last 4 elections. And, at worst case, do what they always do. Post in the public Telegram channel and try to find and tag your group members. So if they can't use the bot, it's the same kind of, we're still at kind of base 1. So, Reiki, Waxa, Chris, what do you think about this strategy?
Fine by me. Yeah, create an option. It's hopefully doesn't confuse people. And
your volume's a little bit low, Chris.
Okay.
We couldn't hear you at all there, Chris.
Yeah, I think he gave us a thumbs up, though. It seems like he was in agreement with kind of this hybrid approach to begin with. And then next election, we can possibly switch away from Zoom and entirely onto Telegram.
I think it makes sense. Did anyone receive any proposals for someone to MC it? So no one in the community proposed. I said I'd be a fallback, so I will act on that. So I will be happy to MC it, and I will send a Zoom link for the community chat. So I'll give that to you, right, Javi?
Yes, there's 2 things we would need. Basically, the Zoom link goes on a pinned message on our Eden members Telegram. So we would have to, I think it's Brandon Lovejoy, if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong, who has this Telegram message, which is hard-coded in the UI. Just make sure that message has the right Zoom link, and then the UI will point to that message, and we should be good. And then make sure that the call can go on for more than 45 minutes, and also make sure that it gets recorded, so that we can have, this for our Eden archives later on.
All right. So I will do that unless anyone puts up a proposal within the next probably 24 hours.
Yes. I've been struggling a bit to keep up with all the Telegram messages. I do want to go through all of them. I did see Sebastian from EOS Support did reach out saying he wanted to know more about the tech support role. I haven't gotten back to him just because it's a flood of messages, but I do want to let you guys know that Sebastian was interested. I know that EOS Support has done a great job documenting a lot of the Eden process, and just letting you guys know that we did have some interest on his side for the tech support role. I'll make sure to follow up on him with him and just make sure that if he's willing to play that role, then we can allow him or anyone else that's interested. And we did receive some messages on that front.
Easy. Anything else, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, there's more that I have. I mean, we can go now, but let me just in terms of the tech support role, I've gotten the chance to work with Leister of Adenia, and he seems very qualified. I personally have not seen Sebastian in any sort of tech role. I'm a little surprised. I didn't know that he was technically able. So that's interesting. But my vote is still on Leister for the tech role. We're kind of getting really close. So we kind of have to make these decisions like now. So anyways, okay. So anyone else have any thoughts on that before we move on?
Thoughts on the use of Telegram are that we should aim for a non-third party source for our videos in the future. But in the meantime, if Telegram's better than Zoom, fair enough. I don't like the idea of using Telegram either.
For our videos?
Yeah.
Oh, like if we're going to use the upvote bot in the future, there's Telegram.
Yeah,
video.
I think reliance on any of these platforms is not good. I think we need to have something that we know is reliable. If Telegram got banned across half the world, for instance, and it would be a major disruption for Eden process.
Yeah.
So I think in the future, there should be a long-term goal, looking for something that's more stable and controlled within the Eden community.
Well, for now, just to make it clear, officially, we're going to use Zoom. And then we're going to introduce the Telegram video call further on. I think it's great to have more than one option. So we're not just dependent on one third party. And, there'll be more permanent or long-term solutions we can consider in future terms. But just to avoid any confusion, let's invite everyone to use the Telegram bot, but keep the calls on Zoom.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was just a future consideration for sure. That makes a lot of sense. I think we should probably vote for the tech lead. We have 2 people interested. I don't think we should wait till anymore. I mean, we're all here. We should make all the decisions we can as we're all here, I think.
Does
Chris,
anyone have a bias for one over the other?
Well, Leister works for our company, so I don't want to, I'll refrain from voting in this case. We'll definitely be around during the election. I mean, we're obviously going to be monitoring all the infrastructure and we'll be available if needed. I like the idea of allowing other people to participate and showing them the ropes and understanding what needs to be done. I'll reach out to Sebastian if he wants to participate and understand what needs to get done. I'll be more than happy to share that with him. And we'll also be available. So it's kind of like a fallback option. And I'm going to make sure Leister's available that day too. But we can also share that responsibility with Sebastian if he's interested, which I haven't reached out to, and make sure that he understands what needs to get done as well.
Okay, but we would need to sign potentially an MSIG to pay Leister for the service, right?
That's how it was done previously. It was a 200 EOS bounty that was put out for that. And it could also be done right before the election. So it doesn't have to be right now. So we have a couple of days to formalize that. I can reach out to Sebastian and see if he's interested in the meantime.
In terms of just my preference for that particular role, I think it's a really important role. And I don't think Sebastian's really a developer. So I think just based on the sensitivity and how I think it's really important to have someone who's done maybe a little more research in advance, not just a couple of days before, my preference would be to go with Leister right now if we were to vote.
All in favor of voting for Leinster? I support it. Leinster. Okay, I think we did it.
All right, that's consensus. Do we need to do an MSIG now?
I can prepare one. Not
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
I'll pay attention to you guys.
All right. Well, speaking of MSIGs, we have an MSIG for reducing the distribution rate to 11%. We should sign that ASAP. Doesn't have to be right this moment, but that is one of the MSIGs that we have planned for this call.
Is there a link to that MSIG anywhere?
Yeah, it's in our
Yeah.
private chat.
Yeah.
We shared some numbers around the 11% distribution rate on our last call. And I think that since then, we'd like to make a clarification. I think, Chris, would you like to just kind of make a little rectification of what those numbers look like now?
Yes, however, I think they're going to be wrong. I think I've underestimated. I forgot to include the fact that chief delegates also receive a chunk, their level 1 amount. So yeah, and it's hard to really do the math because it's I don't know how many people are going to participate. So how much a level 1 gets is dependent upon how many level 1s there are, because it's a particular amount divided by the number of participants. So there is some guesswork here. Like, this is not perfect math. However, based on the previous calculations that I was doing, so which are now lowballed, if we do 11% distribution, if there's 5 chief delegates, they will get 13,400. EOS, if there's 4 chief delegates, they'll get 16,776. Now, it's actually going to be more than that, because again, I didn't include level 1. So if we make it 11%, they'll get more than we got, basically, even if it's probably 5. If it's 4 CDs, they're getting way more than we got in EOS terms, not USD. And so, yeah, but I think the idea of getting more out there and putting it to work, that narrative has been well shared throughout the discussions of all of this. So, I mean, yeah, that's 11% if we go with that.
I think we already all voted on this, so I really just think now it's process of just passing it.
Yeah.
I've already signed it. I don't think we need to discuss it again. So maybe we move to the next MSIG. Just because I think we have a lot to cover today. So apologize if I'm like.
Yeah. Okay. So the next MSIG is in regards to the Civil Protection NFT Circle. This is the reputation system built by Mo and Sajid of the Eden community. They've done incredible work. And there's 2 MSIGs to sign to kind of set that system up in the Eden world. And
because you all did testing on it this week. What was the result of those tests? Do you know?
Yeah. So we did another mock election this week. Everything works. So where we are right now, we have a 4-step plan. Step 1 is complete. Step 2 is almost complete. This is in regards to the initialization. Maybe Javier should speak about this, but I'll be quick, and then Javier can jump in. So step 1 is initialization. Step 2 is getting this on chain on mainnet in Eden World, just like the initialization still. Step 3 is doing a test, like sending out an NFT to someone, just testing the system. And then step 4 is setting up for this particular instantiation of having the thing that we've talked about, automatic distribution of a non-transferable NFT after everyone votes when the election status goes to not active. And what we learned in the last mock election on Tuesday is that when round 2 is over, but before the head chief delegate gets selected, election status is not active. So we can distribute the NFTs during that waiting period. And so that's step 4 to set that up. And we are on track to have that done by end of day tomorrow. Step 4, hopefully, maybe on Friday. So it's tight, but all the tests have worked out really well from what I understand.
Yeah, there's a few transactions that need to take place the first time, and then the next time we use this approach won't be necessary. So basically, we are distributing the NTTs or SPTs as soon as the elections are over. Anyone who votes will receive one, and they will receive one for every round that they participate in. The MSIG proposals will have to create a collection name for the Eden SPT. And basically, we're going to deploy a smart contract that recognizes the Genesis Eden smart contract as a trusted contract to mint these tokens. None of this logic for the non-transferable tokens is within the Genesis Eden contract. It's more of a, it's been developed outside of it, and it's just to separate concerns there. So those are the steps we need to initialize this. It'll only be necessary for this election. There is some artwork and some metadata that's going to go into those entities that needs to be set up. All tests went well on the test net. However, we want to get it all set up on mainnet and then issue some entities manually just to make sure that everything's working. And then after that, what we're doing is just registering who voted during the election. After the election's done, we're going to process that list and issue them. So it doesn't really interfere with any of the logic during the election. It's more of a post-election process that we're going to run. But I'm very excited to have that ready to go. And hopefully we all get our soul-bound tokens for participating in the election, which is something that contributes to our civil resistance layers as Eden members.
On that note, I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see it?
Wait,
No,
no.
I can't.
No, you can.
So you'll see a crow there.
Oh, nice.
So we chose a crow perching on the Eden on EOS logo. The crow is a symbol of protection and foresight. And hope you guys like it. Yeah, big thanks to Kay. Man, what's his name? He's such a long name. The guy who did Immutable Realms. The very
Lars Comenius-Spatch or something.
Thank you. Yes. So this is Lars's work. He actually has a crow in his backyard, so he's very adept at drawing crows, as you can see. And there it is, guys.
It's cool.
Yep, awesome. Looking forward to signing that. Actually, I already did. Do you need anything else for us to sign? I'm not.
No, that's it. So those are the two things that the CDs needed to sign.
Yeah, I've signed them. And the 11% as well.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Lars.
Yeah, big thanks to Javier and Leicester and Mo and Sajid. So this has been like the core team to get this set up. And we're on a good track here to provide some, formalize the authentication kind of capability of our synchronous video calls. So yeah, that's it for me, guys. That was my agenda for today.
Good work, Jesse. Lots done.
So we had talked about last call, this call being about one, doing a recap of our season, anything we feel necessary to share to the community or that would be helpful for the community to know about. And then two, kind of a debrief for the next set of chief delegates and delegates. So these are the things that we're carrying. This is what they might need to know. so they can either watch if they're not already watching it, or go back and watch this and kind of get a download of where we're at and what's helpful for them. So I think that might be a helpful thing for us to all run through, unless anyone else has anything to share before that. Any other process or procedural things we need to cover? Oh.
Well, I do think that after the election, it would be great if we can meet with a new set of CDs and have this transition call, or just make ourselves available to spend maybe the first call with them. And there's also a transfer of power of the active keys. So we'll have to sign off on the MSIG that hands the active permission to the new set of CDs. And for now, that's a manual process. And we do have to do that as soon as the election is over. I'll be happy to prepare the MSIG and sign over those keys. Also, meet the new chief delegates and make myself available for anything I can do to help or any questions. And I think that's important that we open up that communication channel and allow for some continuity of governance here.
Yeah, I love that. We can even do it all on one call and make it more of a celebration, just like in some presidential elections where they do a transfer of power celebration. We can do a similar thing where we all come together on the call, we pass off and say, this is what we're carrying to, and we have a dialogue back and forth and do the MSIG live on camera and just pass it over. That could be fun. Yeah. This is also just a really helpful debrief for people who are running in the elections. So that's why I'd really love for us to cover today is what might be relevant for members as they're campaigning and wanting to be delegates, for them to know. So, if we have big gaps, like, for example, in our bylaws, I'd love to touch on a few things that are necessary for the next delegates to kind of figure out. We could touch on those things today so that members are aware of what the hot topics are for the election, etc. So maybe that's how we can frame our sharing from our perspective, is what might, current members build their campaigns around that we see as helpful.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah. Anyone else have any ideas on how we might change that process and how we're facilitating it today? Well, maybe I'll just call in some random to go, and then we can just do it that way. So maybe I'll send it to Waxa.
So what's this section? Sorry, I missed that.
So two things. You can just do a recap of what you did here. That's really relevant, of course, for members to know about in your term. And then two, what might prospective delegates who are planning on running right now need to know from your perspective of current challenges or gaps or whatever.
Yeah, sure. So one of the main things I did was update the Eden Elections website. I didn't quite fulfill the full scope that I was hoping to with regards to representing circles on there. One of the main reasons was because our proposed changes to the bylaws were kind of rejected to some degree, and then we changed the direction in which we were heading. So the idea was that chief delegates would have access to the treasury to distribute to the OPEX bucket, which would then facilitate the growth and development of circles. So with that all being up in the air, it's been a slight change in direction in the way we're hoping to go with that process. But still, the website has been updated. There's been a few blogs gone out there. Obviously, we've had a substantial funding increase this term, which has been brilliant. And I think it's drawn, and brilliant in the sense that not only do we have a greater runway with more capability for the future, but Eden has been more alive now than it has been since I've seen it from the very beginning. Maybe the first two elections were quite as busy and active and people full of ideas, but right now it's really picked up. We've got a large intake of new members and so on. So the attention is certainly being brought back to Eden. Discussions around the Eden smart proxy have been prevalent over the last week or so in chat, in all of the Telegram chats associated with EOS, which is good to see that people are so engaged with topics that Eden revolves around. And it means that Eden is getting a lot more attention with how it can grow, how it can develop, and a lot more minds have joined the process to make it develop in a way which is more efficient than it would have done without their help. So looking forward to seeing how that progresses. I've also started on something which hasn't really been announced, which was an initiative that Jesse brought to the table, which is a EOS brand guide, which is something separate. It's almost complete. It's something that was going to be proposed to the community and will be completed even though the term continues. It's just to have a single source of branding material for everyone in EOS to use, not necessarily people within Eden. So that's something we were working on. So yeah, there's been a lot, and it's quite hard to do a comprehensive recap without having notes, but it's been a very busy period. I think for the next chief delegates coming in, I think you should prepare a thick skin, because it can get pretty heated out there, especially in the Telegram chats. Unfortunately, chief delegates have come under personal attacks when I really don't think they were necessary. Proposals haven't been read yet, commented upon, and disagreed with. So expect a lot of comeback from the community on all of your ideas if they aren't fully understood or displayed correctly, or even if they're just slightly contradictory. So the community seems very divided between whether Eden's going to progress as a worker proposal system or a governance system. All of the chief delegates here were pushing towards more of a governance structure, hence the proposal. So it's really quite difficult to solve that process of the divide that's currently existing. But I do believe there are a few options out there, and I encourage the next set of chief delegates to be bold and push through with what you think is the right option. Listen to the community, but continue to be bold. So that would be my advice to the next chief delegates. I'd also take into full consideration the bylaws that we've proposed. Think about what consequences each of them have, the merit that they have, before dismissing or approving them. There's already been chat of the bylaws being dismissed because of the potentially contentious issue of wanting a more civil discourse within the community. So have a think about the pros and cons, and hopefully you'll make a good decision. And no doubt the process will elect leaders which represent good decision makers. And that's my summary. I'll pass it over. Shall I pass it over, Reiki, and we'll just take turns at passing?
Maybe you shared some stuff. If anyone wants to unpack what you shared a little bit more, because I do, and then we can keep going.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just to add more color on it, because you spoke to something really important. I remember in like the middle of our term, there's a lot of momentum. This is right after we got the 500K donation. We had designed the circle structure, what the governance system could look like, because I think we're all acting as if we were empowered to act. We were all kind of given this, at least I came into this with the understanding that we're like a decentralized CEO, here to execute on the visions that we're carrying and not really like, get slowed down necessarily. But then what happened is the community didn't have a culture. So that's what we really ran into, is there wasn't any direction of where we could go. So as we started acting with, bold determination, people were like, whoa, time out, that's a different direction we didn't agree to. So that's ultimately why it looked like we were kind of spinning circles here, is we didn't even have a basic foundation. And this could be expected, and this is a startup where the founder left within a few months. So this a totally expected situation, but perfect for decentralized communities. This is what Bitcoin had to survive through, and because it did, it's a thriving ecosystem. So surviving through a founder just leaving and the chaos that ensues and coming up with a structure around it, I think is really a healthy process for decentralized communities. And that's the process we're in the middle of. So I think that's like what delegates next round really need to focus on is, who are we? What is our structure? And what are we allowed to do as chief delegates? What is the game we're playing here? Because that wasn't clear for us. Anyway, does that align with what you're sharing, Waxa? Or anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to add to what Waxa shared?
There's one point I kind of missed out, and that was to all the people that supported us, engaged in these calls and chats and all the Twitter spaces we've held and so on. So all the social events that we've had, everyone who's engaged in that, thank you very much. And for anyone who's provided feedback, thank you. It's all been taken on board clearly. So it's good.
Awesome. I will pass it to someone else.
Jesse, you can go next.
All right. Well, this is my second go as a chief delegate for Eon EOS, and both times have been like one of the most extraordinary experiences in my life. The first, I was part of the season 1, and it propelled me into the EOS community. I was pretty unknown before that, and much more well known after that, and it allowed me to get more funding and legitimacy for the project that I care very deeply about, which is the bees, and providing some innovative marketing techniques for EOS. This time around, and by the way, and that last time and this time, the camaraderie and friendship that I share with you guys and with the CD1s has been incredible, and it's very much like kind of like you're going to summer camp a little bit. 3 months, get to know your fellow campers really well, and it just kind of reminds me of that a little bit. It's really great. And then of course, during this season, I had one of those head exploding emoji moments with what I've kind of so basically my time has been, you can kind of think of it in 3 sections. The first month, I was doing market research, and that's kind of when I had this moment at the end of that month when I realized the massive problem out there, and the capability of Eden on EOS to do a better job at solving it. We just came from the EOS Fireside Chat. There's some really talented developers on that chat talking about how AI and deepfakes could break the civil process that we're building. That's in the future. I think for now, it's a really, really compelling solution. And who knows what other capabilities we can use in the future when the technology advances as a defensive mechanism. But anyway, so market research, mostly in the wax community, saw the problem and realized, okay, this is what I want to do for my term. Second month was kind of like an R&D phase. That's where I found Sajid and Mo and their reputation system and learned about that. And a great team. They had been working on it already, so the timing was just perfect. And then month 3 was implementation and testing. And so this is I think could be really useful, potentially revenue generating. There's more work to do, but a big first step. I think we haven't officially, I don't like to when that non-transferable NFT or SBT lands in my account when the round 2 is over, then I will say that we've accomplished the first step. But it's looking good, and so I'm really proud of that. If that happens, that's going to be another great moment, and if it doesn't, I'm sure we'll clean it up in the next election. Advice for CDs. During my time, I participated in every election, and I'm always looking for like a concrete plan. I've always thought that the incentives were not high enough. The plans that I heard, they weren't great. Just being really blunt about this. But it's not against any of the people running. I just think the incentives weren't aligned. And I think now they are. So I'm really excited for the next election. Come with a concrete plan. How are you either going to help EOS in a very specific way, participate in EOS governance, and how maybe you can improve the ESPX, or how can you attract revenue for Eden on EOS? So potentially we don't have to rely on these large donors, Or in addition to potential large donors, how could we get incremental revenue, shippable intermediaries that are revenue positive? These are the things I'm looking for. This is what I've been trying to build on the civil protection side. I'd like to see more of this. Member benefits. What can we build on for member benefits? I think our term here has done really great work on setting up some powerful member benefits for joining Eden. I want to see more of that, and I encourage all of the members running to really think deeply about what other member benefits can we provide. Of course, to Wax's point, this is a bit of a hot seat, and if you have a new idea, be ready to defend your idea against or with very sophisticated potential detractors of the idea. And so, but I think the incentives are aligned now where it's worth going through all of that. And it definitely was worth it for me personally. I learned a lot about like, call it like behavioral economics, or I don't know. I just learned a lot about like human nature both times that I've been a CD, and I'm really grateful for the experience. And I wish the next CDs the best of luck. And if you need me, my DMs are open. I'll pass it to Javier.
Thanks, Jesse. Well, I've been working on the Spend Explorer, and after our latest mock elections, we've made a lot of improvements. We haven't really updated the production instance yet, but we're going to roll out before the end of my term what I would call version 1 of the Spend Explorer. A lot of bug fixes, a lot of improvements, enhancements to this tool, which really does require buy-in from all the different Eden delegates to voluntarily disclose what category and what description goes with their use of funds, or how the funds are allocated. And well, I think it's really important that we maximize the impact of the Treasury. And I just want to make sure that there's transparency, tools that allow for transparency as to where funds are going, and that allows us to make better informed decisions. You know, any democratic process needs information to make the best decisions. So been working on that. Spend Explorer, really proud of the tool. I think it can be evolved to other aspects of like an accounting standard on EOS. So that was my main focus during this term. We also did the smart contract and UI updates for the Eden elections platform, most notably the remove member action. We've been able to test the smart contract action on the test net. No mainnet Eden members have been removed, but I'm really excited to learn about the dispute resolution process and improve on it. I think what Chris has presented is just the first step. And now we've got the mechanism in place to for this dispute resolution, which I think is necessary on Eden as well. And I know there's a lot of discussion as to, removing members and how that's done, but at least we have that conversation going and some of the first tools in place to do that. I was also really happy to be part of the SPT issuance and the civil resistance layer. I totally agree about member benefits and Jesse's initiative to increase the value that Eden members get by going through the process of the induction and being an Eden member. And we can totally grow that, right? So checking who is an Eden member and allowing them to have maybe a different experience on apps, or just more of VIP status, if you will, on different games, because you've gone through the induction process, because you've been civil checked. So I'd like to see more build on the member benefits as well. And on the infrastructure side, we made some improvements. We're still working on the election infrastructure, which I think is a very neutral position in my case. Like, the technology just needs to work, and then the people will make their minds up. So I've been working on that as well. I guess my advice for future CDs is I think that it's really important. Like you get to know the group of CDs you're with, but L1s should also be participating more. And I'd like to really get to know all the different delegates. I think L1 delegates, well, they're also receiving funds from the Treasury, and reaching out to L1 delegates and getting them to chime in and make sure that we can give them some attention and spotlight as well is important. So I would like to see some of that as well in the next election. And I really do trust this process. I think that we've seen throughout all 4 terms that the people who ended up as CDs are extraordinary members of our community, and that this upvote process does pick some really good people. So it's been a real pleasure to be a part of this term, and I'll continue to support Eden any way I can as a member, and also really looking forward to continuing to build on the tools that we started building, like the Spend Explorer. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I think that it's really important to have discussions, and conflict is constructive, can be constructive, and just to make sure that we feel that we can resolve conflict in a constructive form, and we work on those skills to have a healthy conflict, I think is what we're looking for. So maybe it's not something we can do right away, or it takes some practice, but I hope that as a community, we can mature to really come up with the best outcomes by taking into account everyone's opinions and having these conflicts play out in a very constructive way. I think I'll leave it at that. Okay.
Javier, could I just ask you something not so relevant to what you were saying? Just in the Eden chat right now, the UI says the next election will be held January 7, beginning at 8 a.m. EST. Some people are saying that's the community room starting time. I thought that was when the round 1 election starts.
There's a 1 hour community room opens 1 hour before the election starts.
Right, but the main homepage of the member portal says 8 a.m. EST. Is that talking about the Zoom room, or when the election starts? I'll share my screen just real quick. Sorry,
pretty sure that's the Zoom room. The election starts at 9 a.m. At least it has every time prior to this.
Right, but okay, so it does take into account the UTC, because if we go off UTC, that the EST changes, or like. But anyways, okay. So there's others in the chat right now saying that election starts at 9 a.m. The rooms get randomized at 9 a.m. You don't have to be there at 8 a.m. or 13 UTC. 13 UTC is 8 a.m. That's when the community room starts. You don't need to be there, just as long as you're here before 14 UTC. Okay, that's correct. Thanks.
That's right. There's also a 10-minute window. So the community room opens. There's 1 hour where everyone can assemble. Then the election officially starts. But we have a 10-minute period of time where people can join their groups, and then the election would officially begin. But there is some time to allow people to find their groups and join the calls. But yes, the election community room begins 1 hour before the actual election. So what's displayed on the UI is the community room opening. The actual election will start 1 hour after. And I'm not saying any specific times because of all the different time zones, and the actual UI will change the time based on your time zone. So I don't want to throw any specific times out there because it might confuse people.
All right, let's carry on with our reflections.
We could send it over to Chris.
Sure. Yeah, when I look at the UI, it's converted from my local time zone. It says the time. It explicitly is saying community room, Zoom room opens, and then there's a half-hour opening ceremony, and then on the hour, the election begins 1 hour after the Zoom room opened. So maybe there's like different UI based on your interface, like maybe cell phone's different than computer. Okay, yeah, so summary. So one of the big things I was hoping to accomplish during this term was to speak at the Independent National Convention that was supposed to take place in December. When was it supposed to take place now? October, December. Anyway, it got delayed, whatever it was. So it didn't matter. It didn't happen. It was supposed to happen during this term, and it got postponed until April. So I am still planning on going to represent the Eden community, or at least the Eden process. I won't, let me rephrase that. No individual can ever represent the community. However, I will represent the process as I understand it, and my experience with the process, and explaining the kind of the merit and the validity of this tool as an alternative means to come to group consensus around selecting leaders and representatives, which is what I'm here for. I guess, I've been thinking lately about worker proposal system versus governance, and I personally have only been here for the governance side of it. That first trial election over a year and a half ago now, when I became the first Satoshi, that was the title of the person who wins head chief delegate at the time. I did that representing John Heater and the EOS Power Up project. So I was a complete unknown, like 100% unknown to anybody here. But I represented a project and was able to become the head chief delegate, not because I had anything of my own. How I communicated apparently was sufficiently enough to establish trust to get the votes to represent John and his project. So ever since then, I've always been here really for the governance aspect. I think worker proposal system is a use case, but I think it's really missing the reason I'm here personally. Again, it's the world's a shit show. Most of our leaders absolutely suck. The processes by which they selected are completely corrupt and broken. If anyone cares about that, who's watching this, you should read More Equal Animals, because then of course you're going to get the negative trolls who will just say this is a cult based on some book, and it's not. It's a book that someone wrote that people have issues with, but it doesn't take away from the merit or the ideas of the book. Like the fact that people can't separate an idea from the person who delivers the idea speaks to how absolutely shallow and trapped in one's ego those people are, because you need to step outside of yourself just for a second and recognize that ideas exist on their own, regardless of who speaks the idea or even invented the idea or put it together. Like it's not even like necessarily that Dan invented all these concepts, but he certainly compiled them in a very nice book that is pretty clear to me that this is a much better system to select governance and to select leaders. So that's why I'm here. So yeah, that was a tangent. So yeah, I wasn't able to deliver on that speech because they didn't have it. So I'm still planning to do that. Of my funding I've received, I was telling it today, it was what, 14,000 or so, 14,000 EOS just over, spent roughly 5,000 EOS in the past Pomelo, and I will be keeping the remainder to hopefully start another Eden or more. So I'm using that explicitly to help incubate and kick off new Eden communities, because I think as a governance tool, again, we hear this argument that the current Eden doesn't have its shit together, so how dare we even consider the idea of starting other Edens? That's not how tools work, right? It's a tool. It's like a flathead screwdriver is a flathead screwdriver to one and a chisel to another. And it might be a pry bar to someone else or a doorstop to someone else. So it's not for anyone to ever decide that there's no value in iterating on a tool, right? We might say that the current use case of this tool, Eden version 0.1, which is what we're currently all interacting in, has problems. That is obviously apparent to anyone with a set of eyeballs. But that doesn't mean that the tool can't be slightly repurposed, rejigged, and then redeployed for greater efficacy in terms of what the purpose is. And that is ultimately the key problem we're facing. We don't know what the purpose of this Eden is. We've never been able to figure it out since Dan left. And so here we are. So yeah, that's what I'm going to use the remainder funds for, is to encourage the development of other Edens. And then possibly we'll see, like there's also this Independent National Convention still coming up in April, and there's still an opportunity for quote unquote Eden to become a sponsor. And so we could have more involvement as a community and probably have like some special seats near the front for Eden delegates to show up, and it's going to be in Texas. So maybe I'll still take a small amount of that remainder of EOS for that particular purpose. Advice for next chief delegates? I don't know. Don't associate yourself with B1 or Helios if you want to have a nice time. Because that's been, I think, the most frustrating thing for me. when people have come in to the new Eden members come in like an absolute bull in a china shop, thinking that they know exactly the history of everything that's been done in this community. And there's no way they've ever had the opportunity to learn. It's like we've got 1.75 years of time dedicated to this. I know personally I've dedicated, I think it's fair to say, probably more than anyone else towards this cause. And it's voluntary, and I didn't expect any kudos for it. I did it for what I just previously spoke about. This is a governance thing, and it has great power, and I don't want to leave this planet without doing something for potentially my kids and their kids that actually might have tangible influence. It has nothing to do with the EOS blockchain. It's just it's a sidebar as far as I'm concerned, the bigger picture of what this thing can possibly do. That's what motivates me. That's why I'm here. And so to chief delegates, follow your heart, do whatever you think is best. And hopefully it's something bigger than just ourselves and just this tiny little EOS bubble that we tend to absorb ourselves in. And that's it.
Yeah, awesome. Any responses to what Chris shared to add color to any of that?
I think it's easy to get.
Oh,
I was just going to say it's easy to get kind of distracted by day-to-day conversations and little things, but it's really important to keep that macro picture and kind of really see the potential of this more than just within our community and just really not lose sight of the huge implications to having a new political playoffs alternative and how can that can impact the world. I think just keeping that in mind at all times is important, because it's really easy to get distracted with minor things and lose that larger picture.
Yeah, I was going to add to that, because I'll share that on my personal one, but to reflect what Chris shared, I think this is an opportunity in Eden to show how our consensus building tools might build consensus in an environment that's in war. So it's kind of like the perfect test environment to be building this technology and building these tools in, is one that is presently in a warring mindset, because that's what most of the world is in right now. So if our tools are going to be really helpful, like imagine the story right now when people show up to EOS, and I mean, this happens all the time, and why I don't really share it too much is because they do a little bit of research online and they're like, what the hell is all this drama? Like, this thing sounds like a freaking fraud and blah, blah, blah. Like, it sounds sketchy, and they have no trust. It's like, damn it. I would love to be able to share an article that talks about how that was the situation, like this community at war, and then how they used their own technology to find peace and find consensus and align interests and, get past war into constructive, peaceful situations, right? If that article existed, first we'd have to achieve that, which I think is our opportunity. But if that article existed, that'd be huge for us and EOS and this whole community and the legitimacy of what we're actually building. If we can prove that these tools work in this environment, then they can work for so many communities out there that are trying to find peace, alignment, shared purpose, etc. So that's kind of what Eden is a general purpose platform for. So anyway, I see that as a huge opportunity for Eden to be the peace builders in EOS. I don't think we have to get caught up in either side of the war. So anyway, that's my huge bias, is if, Eden could be the ones to help create and build peace. Not that everyone else can't get involved too, but I see that as a really big opportunity for us. How do you feel, Chris? Because I know that's directly related to our conversation we had about this and how do we be peace builders. So I wanted to leave your comments on that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's this is why this on one hand, it's like I'm seeing all of what we're seeing in Eden right now, and this spark of interest that has come. We didn't see this level of interest in Eden. I don't even know if we've seen this much level of broad debate even when it was first launched. Like, I think maybe, yeah, it was pretty intense there too. But this is definitely second most intense level of dialogue we've seen broadly amongst the community, but either in Twitter, the various Telegram channels, not so much in Discord, but so we're getting a lot of engagement, and we're getting a lot of new members joining Eden. It's a really big influx right now. And I don't think they're here just for the gravy. like collecting the money. There's way more money up front the first time around. It was 1.2 million in the treasury at a 5% distribution rate. Now it's under 500, it's 460,000 or 455,000 EOS, which is only 400 grand in cash. So it's a lot less. But we're seeing, I think, a big interest in this idea of the governance side, which is awesome. It's starting to push that envelope. And that is creating, to your point, and we've heard it mentioned by others as well, this idea of a war. And I think that's unfortunate. I don't know anybody, like fighting is the last thing you ever want to do in a conflict. Like going to war is it's like when you've given up on everything else. That's like the last step is to go to war. So it's unfortunate that seems to be where a lot of the like that's where we're starting. We just start in war versus like, can we come to consensus? Isn't that what this is for?
No,
so
see, I wanted to change that to say it's not unfortunate. It's actually super fortunate because this is exactly the environment we need to build these tools. It's like if you build them in peace, they might not work in war. So if you can build them in war and they work, oh man, it's good tools.
Yeah, I think it's just recognizing the proclivity for certain individuals to go to war as a first step. And I don't know who's, like I'm saying, BPs or whoever these people are, right? Amorphous warmongers. But in the end, yes, this is a tool for peace, but it's not even that. It's a tool to come to consensus. It's a tool to come to group consensus, and it's absolutely predicated upon who that group is. So one thing to keep in mind is that Eden has been mentioned by many people. When we are trying to apply this to Eden Smart Proxy, it can be absolutely gamed, because if the community that participates in election is for a particular faction or paid off or has a particular bias, and there's a flood of membership for that particular bias, the tool breaks down. It will no longer work once you reach a sufficient threshold of enough bad actors or whatever, certain disposition of actors representing a certain party. It does break down. So that's where I think where I'm seeing just a lot of like, this is illuminating for me that, wow, there's so much to learn about what this tool is, how it can be used, and the mistakes that have been made, and they can be corrected. So to me, this is like a great learning opportunity for like, what could we do differently? If we were to start another Eden today, what would we do differently for that Eden than what we've seen happen with this Eden, and what I perceive as being some of the downside risks of this particular Eden in its current formation? Like there's issues. There's a lot of room for refinement. And you've met, I think one of the ones that I love the most about what you said, Reiki, is the idea about having membranes and rites of passage where new members can't just immediately become a chief delegate. I think I like the idea. I'm thinking of this, toying with the idea of having the fractally process become integrally entwined with the Eden election process for governance. So say, imagine you had a full new membership of people, but they had to earn enough respect in fractally meetings, showing up every week, dedicating commitment. What are you doing? Earn that respect so you can actually show up and participate to be a chief delegate. I think that the idea that anybody can join today and still compete to be a chief delegate speaks to a bit of a problem. And it speaks to, I think, again, why the Eden Smart Proxy, which I think we should rename to EOS Smart Proxy, we need to tweak it. Like I think it's that idea needs some tweaks now based on what we're seeing, because there are some pretty clear and easy to achieve attack vectors, which I'm super grateful for. I mean, that's the thing. This is no one has the answers here. We're iterating. So that's what I'm taking away from this. I think there's a huge learning opportunity.
The integration of the fractally process with the Eden process. Dan he considers, I think he said that fractally is like Eden 2.0, he said. But I think that there's pros and cons of both approaches. And I've always had in the back of my mind that there is the optimal implementation uses the benefits of both approaches. I really, really like that idea of getting validated through the fractally process in order to have access to the treasury of, let's say, a highly liquid, fungible, and high volume token, and the respect token is like a non-transferable, like fungible token or something. That's yeah, I really like that.
Awesome. Anyone else want to reflect on what was all shared before I go?
I guess I'll just say one thing, just in line exactly to Jesse's point, where if we can take multiple ideas and take the best pieces of each and overlay them to create something that's even better than what they would have been individually, that's, I think, how I view, and I think a lot of us view, this idea of this smart proxy. It's not replacing delegated proof of stake. It's adding a layer on top of DPoS that has the human influence. So it's taking this Eden process and it's overlaying it onto DPoS. It's not replacing it. It doesn't give any undue power to any particular interest or faction. It gives the power to the people of the quote unquote Eden community. So I think it's just to that point. We're trying to overlay ideas to create something that's better in a synergistic kind of perspective, not a replacement perspective.
And I could see that proxy being a proxy for the trust that Eden has in the EOS community. So as Eden creates more trust and has a better process and is proving that it's able to make good decisions, people can stake more EOS to the proxy, etc. If they don't think it's making good decisions, they remove their stake, etc. So we can kind of use that to see how much does the EOS community actually trust this process and what's happening here. So I saw that as a potential benefit if it does become the Eden, smart proxy, but if not, all good. Any other thoughts before we keep going? Okay. I will share my screen. I have a couple things to show. There you go. Yeah, so I've had a bit of a journey here. The first 2 months, the pay was significantly less than the third month, and the landscape was much more confusing. My campaign that I ran on was, I'm a map maker. I've helped decentralized communities, figure out their purpose, get organized. You can kind of do the founder role, but I consider it a catalyst role where you build the initial structure for decentralized collaboration to happen. You bring members together, you help them get organized, and then you're able to kind of step away and keep going. So that's what I've been doing, and I think that might have been part of the reason why some of the Eden members invited me back into this. So I came here the last election. It was like, yeah, I'd like to bring some of these skills. I'd like to make a member onboarding to help people understand how to play the game when they get here. And then when I got in, hold on, let me see if I can make it a bigger screen. Don't worry about what it says right now. Let's move it to something different so you don't feel the need to read it. So then when I got in, I realized that there was actually a clear purpose of how members are meant to show up and what they're supposed to do. So it was kind of possible to make a video on how that process is if that process doesn't exist. So the first 2 months was really about sense making, connecting with the community. I've had a bunch of calls with members one-on-one, met a lot of you and just awesome humans here. And tried to get an understanding of what is Eden, what is the purpose here, what are we trying to achieve, how are we trying to achieve it, and some of these basic questions that I had a hard time getting answers to. So that was my first 2 months. The last month, I kind of showed up a lot more with some suggestions and ideas and started putting together the 3 horizons of Eden to try to bring all of these ideas together into one coherent kind of roadmap of what we're all trying to do. So this is one attempt at doing that, which I think we brought into, hopefully we're doing the MSIG for this today or soon, to ask ENF for 50K to fund this roadmap. So it'll help start the dialogue, and this roadmap is edited for, or open for any chief delegates to edit. So I'll pass this on to the next round of chief delegates. They can have a dialogue with ENF if they'd like, make edits to the roadmap as necessary, etc. And why it's 3 horizons is because Eden, as any ecosystem, has a lot of complexity within the ecosystem. As we see when we ask, what is our purpose? I actually have a screenshot of how that poll went. There you go. The results were completely split. Only 37% said worker proposal system, 4% civil resistance, 18% EOS chain governance. 37% was the highest alignment we received on what's our main purpose here. So it's very spread across. I personally think all of the above is the most accurate answer. So that's what the whole point of the 3 horizons framework was, is how do you actually synthesize all of this diversity into one roadmap that makes sense? So when people show up, they're like, okay, what is the purpose of Eden? They can get a general understanding of what's happening here with this roadmap. So that's where the 3 horizons came from, and we went through a bunch of iteration and feedback on that, and it ended up in 20 slides, as you see. The next piece is I've been trying to make a few just maps of the ecosystem itself and how it could look. That might be a little bit too small, so never mind. I'll talk about that in the group. Actually, let me see if I can change this at all. Does it get bigger if I put it in slideshow? No?
Slideshow looked better.
Slideshow worked?
Yeah, looked good.
Oh, okay. Okay, so as you see here, I said partial. This is definitely not trying to encompass everything in Eden. There's only 2 language groups here, and it's, putting the map together, very experimental here. But this is what I would call like an organization chart for an ecosystem. So it's looking at it a little bit differently. You have the soil level, which is what I'm calling, EOS, IBC, Antelope, etc. It's, the foundation of where Edens take root. So this is where EOS exists. And then you have the different Edens. So you might have Eden English, which is what we are, the Eden on EOS ecosystem here. And then this is where the branches. So we talked about this circles concept and what are our purpose. So instead of trying to change everything to, change the trunk. So every, next season, we're going to figure out what is our purpose again, and we keep going on this endless cycle. And then the trunk has to keep getting changed. That makes for a very unstable ecosystem. So instead, what I was trying to weave together here is this idea that the trunk itself is just the worker proposal system and the election civil resistance process. The very basics of what the Eden election process constitutes the trunk. But then all of the branches are the different circles or delegate projects and the different DAOs and stuff that can form within that worker proposal system. So it's receiving funds from the worker proposal system to build out the branches. And then the branches is where most of the work, in my mind, would actually happen. So this is where they're probably setting really clear code of conducts. There's a barrier to entry to actually get into here. So why the trunk, it's pretty open. You get an invite, you do the induction process, and then you're a member. There's not really strict requirements of who can or can't be a member. And I think that's by design really important. But branches, I think, are very different. I think branches set a particular culture, an individual they're looking for, and they can have strict requirements. So they do closed communities and branches. If you want, of course, you can be an open community too. So this is where we can have most of the innovation actually start happening, is within the branches that work out. And then this is how the ecosystem expands. And then, of course, branches can have branches, and this scales infinitely, right? And then we got this DAO incubator process connecting to the other Edens, different language Edens, etc. So this is just one attempt at creating kind of a simple map to capture all of the complexity that's emerging here and to do it in a semi-coherent way. Maybe I'll pause here in case there's any feedback or if this makes any sense, and what do you guys think?
Yeah. So I really like this. It totally makes sense. Trees and branches are fractal in nature, so I think this is an appropriate analogy. And yeah, I really appreciate all your work, Reiki. And yeah, hopefully we can have some actual efficacy in this circle model, whether that's coming from the treasury or just by voluntary donations. I think organizing our system in smaller groups, I think is going to be really beneficial for us. So yeah, totally like it.
Yes, and that's where all the code of conduct, how we communicate with each other, et cetera, can all exist too. So instead of that saying, let's create a code of conduct that applies for every member who just wants to receive a civil resistant NTT, that seems a little extreme, right? And I agree with that concept. So that's where I wanted to separate the idea of the Eden, Eden on EOS protocol, which is the worker proposal system NTT, what people believe the main, or at least it received the most support as what the main, purpose of Eden on EOS is. That doesn't change very much. Most of the change I see happening within the branches and circles. So that's where most of those social and cultural, experiments can start taking place, in my opinion. So it was really just an attempt at, there's a lot of complexity here. Instead of trying to cut it out and fork each other out and separate, how do we integrate and bring it all into, the potential that we have here? I have one more thing to share, and then I will be done. And I'll just do it super high level, and then people can read this if they want. I wanted to put together an unofficial, kind of guide as, my learning through the game, because that's how I look at this, is all infinite games. These are games that we can design as we play them, that can evolve as we're playing them. That's the concept of an infinite game. So a little bit more on like me and my history, if you care about any of that, but I hid it away from most people who don't care. But then gave some basic tools I think would be really helpful for any delegate to, survive and thrive here. At least from my perspective, that's all I was able to offer here. So I put together a couple of videos I think is really helpful. Some frameworks and maps of looking at the complexity of what's going on here. So there's one that's called infrastructure, social structure, and superstructure, for example. It's one way of looking at everything that's happening in the Eden ecosystem, where infrastructure is the tools that we're building, what a lot of the work proposals are funding right now. The social structure is how we go about coordinating, i.e. our election process itself. So it's our fractal democratic process, delegates, what the delegates do, the governance around delegates, etc. And then our superstructure is, what is our aligning narrative? Like, why are we actually here? Is it because More Equal Animals, the book? Is it about, freedom in general? Are we here to create the foundations of new civilizations, et cetera, et cetera? So a lot of the superstructure, Eden itself might have a very basic one. Maybe it's just, people here are caring about freedom. We don't need to necessarily define it. But then all the circles can get much more clear on what is their superstructure, what is their defining narrative. Because this is what attracts new people into an ecosystem, is when there's a really clear superstructure that aligns to them, a culture that they agree with, a vision that a community's headed towards, something very clear. Why the Eden on EOS protocol itself, I think, should stay neutral, not have a clear defining reason for its existence outside of civil protection and distributing funds. Okay, so if we have these three different structures, it helps us as delegates who are helping steward this ecosystem. Have three different ways of putting in reports. So just like we have tech bug reports when we're building infrastructure, i.e. technology and tools, we might have governance bug reports for our social structure, right? If things are happening that we didn't expect to happen in our governance. Same thing for cultural norm bug reports. If we have something happening in our culture that we don't appreciate, right? So there's some examples of this, what that looks like. I'll go fast here because I don't want to bore us. I made some tools for helping make sense in the community. So I'm going to make these actually where we can put in those bug reports. And then ideally we have Telegram where each comment message is a bug report, and then it turns into a thread where we can respond to that bug report. So this way we can have focused dialogues, or maybe we make a Notion. I know Gabrielle has talked about that and others. So I'd like to help someone launch these. But I made the maps, the Eden for All, and some places to take polls. So the Eden Consortium, I think Jesse and others set that up. Thanks, Vlad, for building this tool. It's really awesome. So here's a link to that community. And then the Telegram group. So I will pass off admin rights to every group of CD. So just message me if you become a CD, and I'll let you have control of that channel so you can make polls. And then some really helpful content in me if you're navigating life as a CD. So I've added some, the tyranny of structurelessness we talked about. So some helpful content there, some reflections on the whole North Star and how are we creating value for EOS. So again, when people are taking over this CD role and they're kind of being put into this position to guide a community, this is just some helpful information to help them, gain an understanding of who this community is, what's the point, where we're going, at least as best as I could understand. I'm actually gonna fill this out more, but it's like some housekeeping things to do in the bylaws. So I mentioned passing that off to the next CDs. We went over a whole bunch of stuff. I've just been taking notes on this doc, and there's 14 pages for me to collate into bullet points. So I'll be doing that over the next couple of days. But then this will just be a list of things that we've already identified to be trouble points within the bylaws that need to be kind of worked through. So big stuff there. A little bit more on the decision-making of Eden, how it works. Okay, so here's another one I wanted to put out there, is changing the induction process a little bit. So something to consider. We have a couple of reasons for this. Right now, the induction process, you just say, yes, you agree to the bylaws. It's pretty basic. I love that. Well, let's leave that. But I was thinking an optional, 3 to 5 minute introduction of who you are, why you're in Eden, who you're looking for creating with, what projects you're holding, whatever you'd like. because then there's another reason to go through and watch these videos. There's zero reason to go through and watch a whole bunch of people agreeing to bylaws. There's a lot more incentive to watch, hopefully, really well prepared 3 to 5 minute pitches about who people are to help people understand who's in the community, right? So this can help do our community building and make our civil processes stronger, because now there's a more incentive to actually go through and watch those videos. I think I'm sharing a lot. Anyway, there's some more stuff here. I've made some maps and tried to make sense of the ecosystem. Please come here and read this after I share it if you're interested in this. So I plan on sharing this right before the election or right after. I'm still putting it together. But one last thing before I close out and just open up for questions or whatever, is a suggestion for the election room facilitation. So also when I showed up, there was no process. It was kind of a group kind of stumbling through and saying, well, it was kind of like this last time. Like there wasn't a structure there that helped guide the conversation and encourage people to participate and form consensus, right? So I put one process to do this that groups can fall back on. So if you're a part of a group this election, you don't have to do this. No, this is forced. But if you'd like to, you could start off and say, do we want to use this facilitated process? I'll agree to that, cool. And then you can just follow this. Or someone can suggest a different process. But I do think it's important for every group to have a process so that one person doesn't dominate the call and that there's time for everyone to share and have a civil dialogue. So what this is it says, okay, for the first 20 minutes, you split up however many there is, that's how much time you get. And you have that many minutes to do your introduction. So what are you trying to bring? Do you have a campaign? Are you running as a delegate? If you're not, what are you looking for in a delegate? And some of those basic introductory questions. Because then the next 10 minutes could be another circle where everyone has 1 to 2 minutes to try to collate what they heard in that introduction. So this is where you do your first attempt at trying to build a synthesis or a consensus of all those different ideas, if that's what you're wanting. Or of course, you can just reiterate, why your idea and your project is really helpful or whatever. So this is the round for consensus building. And then after you do one round of that and everyone has an attempt to, present their platform more fully, then you have 10 minutes where you vote and you go around in a circle and you say, I'm voting for this person. Here's why, I'm voting for myself because X, Y, Z or whatever. And then it goes around. So it's just a very basic process for us to have a more structured way of going through the election. So this is where I'm going to actually put all of my learnings throughout the season. I'm going to fill this out a little bit more, and that will be my kind of major contribution along with the 3 horizons. And use of funds, Chris mentioned his, I'll use mine. I donated like 1,800, I think, actually, to Pomelo projects. I spent 1,000, maybe a little bit more, I'll have to double check, on a developer to put together a Notion. It's half put together right now. I'll pass it to anyone who's doing a collaboration platform for next season, because we didn't get it finished. But I did start a Notion board. I'm not even going to share it because it's just kind of the back end of it all right now. And then the rest of it was for my time, for showing up, doing sense making, putting together all of this stuff, and hopefully these documents are valuable enough. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So this whole document is my kind of summary to delegates on what to expect, what to think about, and if you become a delegate, hopefully you can read this guide and it might help you on your quest. All right.
Yeah, it looks like a great document. I like the changes in the induction. I think that'd be valuable. Like, you're totally right. There's no incentive to watch these inductions. To have a little bit more color in there, I think, is valuable. And I like the structure of the elections. Yeah, great stuff. I have a couple procedural things that I had forgot about, and should be fairly quick, hopefully. First one, I executed the MSIG for the 11%, so that's official on chain now. I was the 4th one to sign, and I've executed. So first one is complete. We got a few more to go. Now, this there's a consideration that I'd like to bring to the rest of the chiefs here about. So it's in regards to these 2 other MSIGs of the NFT, NTT, SBT reputation system built by Sigit and Mo. There's like an admin account that controls this system. And what I'd like to propose is the owner keys of that account are the CDs. And the active key is Sajid and Mo with a weight of 1 each, a threshold of 2, and a time delay of 24 hours. That's the proposed setup. Any thoughts, objections, approvals, etc.?
Do you have the name of the account or the contract this is for? Just, I have the M6. I haven't taken a closer look. I'm just wondering if it's the validation contract or which one.
I don't know. There's 5 contract names. There's organization, simple badge, AA badge, billing, and metadata. I assume it's the organization, so I'll put it in the chat. I think it's this one, but I'll get that double check for you. I'll put it in the private chat. I think that's the account name.
I do think it's good to have the next set of CDs understand what authorities they have as key holders. So there's a few things, a few accounts that hold permissions from the set of CDs, and I'd like to set up a call with them after the election and go through all of them so they understand what implications it has to be a CD and what authorities you do have. I do know that there's one contract that requires the permissions of the Genesis Eden group and the CDs, and I think that's the one you're referencing. So this sounds like a good compromise so that Sajid and Mo can continue to work on their project, yet still have the owner permissions be part of the CDs. And this is mostly relevant to the next group of CDs. So I just think it's really important to communicate that to them.
And I've added that to the housekeeping things to do, to add that to the bylaws, because I think it's really important to be very explicit about what powers CDs have. So yeah, we didn't get to that quite yet this season.
Right. Javier, check in the our private Telegram channel. I forwarded a messages from Sajid. A little confusing to me.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I'll definitely go over that. We did it out. We set it all up on Jungle, so I'm familiar with the contracts. I just want to make sure that I got those a couple of hours ago, and I haven't really been able to take a closer look. But I'll do that today. Make sure we get those sorted out. But what you're proposing sounds right. Owner permissions, and then allowing the dev team to still be able to make some changes if necessary.
Yeah, I've signed that MSIG, Jesse.
okay. It's a different. What I'm saying is a different.
Different one to the MSIG.
This one's not an MSIG, right, Javier? They could. I mean, anyone can assign any account for the permissions on an account, right? This is not. This would not be an MSIG.
What we're doing is we're deploying a new contract on a new account, and that contract should have owner permissions from the set of CDs. So we're not really modifying the Genesis.Eden contract with this logic for the NFTs. It's going to be a separate contract that the developers can work on, but that CDs still have owner permissions over. So we have to create a new account, deploy the contract on there, and this is I think what we're talking about.
All right, great. Well, we're right at 90 minutes. One of the things that I wanted to do, sometimes we had like a couple 5-hour calls in season 1, and it was a big strain on the community, kind of. So we've been really good at doing 90 minutes. So thank you everyone. Yeah. best of luck to everyone in the next election. This is really like a special kind of project, and yeah, see you guys on Saturday.
Thank you, everyone, for your wonderful energy and time and commitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, an epic experiment. It's going to be exciting seeing how the election turns out, as there's a lot of things to discuss and select leaders for, so it'll be fun.
Okay, before I end it, thank you all the chief delegates. We've worked alongside each other now for 3 months. It's been an absolute pleasure. Learned a lot, and every single meeting we've had, I've always walked away thinking that the process has certainly worked with the selection that we've had, because you're all extremely talented. So thank you all for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
100%. I endorse Wax's message. Thank you all. You're awesome.
Thank you.
See you guys soon.
Bye.